You are about to listen to the Dr. Dahlia Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Dahlia Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Dahlia.
Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dr. Dali, 1-877 DOCDALI. So some of you are probably going to be sitting at a graduation in the coming week or two. I am. My baby is graduating UNLV. Really excited for my son Brock. He went to UNLV. My other son went to UNLV. I went to UNLV. My husband went to UNLV. My son's fiance went to UNLV. So I'm a rebel to the end. And I've been to many graduations, not including myself, that I had to go through. You had your, eighth grade graduation, high school graduation, college graduation, medical school graduation. I mean, there's a lot of graduations you go through. And every time I sit there, I look at the thousands upon thousands of people sitting there at Thomas & Mack or whatever center or facility you're at where you watch the graduation. And I'm like, well, all of them have jobs. Will they find jobs? I mean, we have a lot of graduates, a lot of people graduating in engineering, in biology, in women's health, and environmental studies. Are there enough jobs? And I'm being told that there's going to be about 4 million students graduating this year, 4 million. And good for them. Good for them. For rather than sitting in their mom's basement, playing video games, they decided to, continue their education and get a degree. I think that's wonderful. Hopefully they didn't get screwed over by the university and have hundreds of thousands of dollars of student loans for that degree. But we're starting to see some of the commencement speeches. I thought Harrison Ford did a great commencement speech. You had the one who was an AI tech that got booed, by the student she was talking to. And so, my message, if I was doing a commencement speech, and I have done commencement speeches before, but if I was going to speak to the students, now, I mean, the first thing I would say is, one, take in this moment. This is really, really cool. Okay. Graduations can be very boring. And you're sitting there. You're either, I was a little hungover because we had a party the night before. And I made out with a good friend of mine, and he and I were sitting together, and then, we were kind of trying to figure out if we were going to date or not. And so I don't really remember too much of that graduation. I remember more of my medical school graduation, but then again, we were passing around a big bottle of champagne. This was like a 5-foot bottle. I don't remember what we were doing. So the first and foremost is I would tell everybody, be sober and enjoy the moment. Your graduation is pretty significant. And enjoy it. And even though we've been taught you need to be humble, never be narcissistic, don't be always patting yourself on the back, this is the one moment where, you get to. I mean, the trials and tribulations it took to get through school, especially since the majority of the people that are graduating were, obviously, affected by COVID somewhere in their training, whether it was high school, whether it was college. And so not easy because you didn't get the educational experience I did where you were in class, and, you could connect with the professor and connect with other students. So not easy, proud of you. Number 2 is temper your expectations, okay? Don't think that just because you have that degree, everybody's going to be rolling out the red carpet for you, all right? Somehow that message is still persisting. So people think, well, once I get my degree, people are going to be begging me for a job or banging on the door for a job. Well, no. Now, luckily for me, I got a job before I even finished graduating residency. And if you're in a field where they are really, really hungry for, doctors or nurses or teachers or environmental specialists or whatever, you might be that way. But you might be that in a high demand. But just understand that the work doesn't end here. The work's going to continue. Number 3 is thank everybody that supported you. Okay, because you have family members that are sitting there for hours at the graduation waiting for you to cross the stage and take that one picture. They're holding in their pee. They're probably getting a UTI or a DVT, God forbid, waiting for you to graduate and watching. Make sure you say, hi, Mom. Don't be like, oh, gosh, no pictures. I told my son wanted to know what I wanted for Mother's Day and my birthday. I go, I want you to smile in the graduation pictures. He's like, oh, man. Gosh, you couldn't have asked for something simpler. Okay, come on, give us our moment. Okay, because we helped to make you, and we helped, with the grace of God, You're here graduating. Don't forget, to thank everybody that supported you, because obviously we had to support you to get to that point. So just don't forget to do that. I know you all don't get to go on stage, but when you do the pictures and everybody's hugging and you're like, oh my gosh, this is embarrassing. My friends are watching me with grandma and family and all that. Just say, look, I just want to, guys, thank you, because this wouldn't happen without you. Oh my gosh, you get 10 get out of jail free cards with that one. That's awesome. Number 4 is reach for the stars. Yeah, you might have to temper your expectations in terms of everybody wanting your job. But just because you have a degree in business or a degree in biology or a degree in that doesn't mean that you only have 4 walls. You can break down a wall, make some hallways. Oh, here comes a really bad analogy. But you don't necessarily, if you feel like, you're going to be trapped or you don't really like what you're doing. Because when you're in school, you're thinking, oh, I'm going to get to do surgery and I'm going to get to deliver babies. You don't think you're going to be draining rectal abscesses and doing paperwork all the time, and dealing with insurance authorization forms. And I tell medical students all the time, they're like, I thought medicine was going to be different. And I'm like, just like being a cop. You could be out on the street and you could be doing what you think you get to be doing, saving lives and all that. But a good majority of your cop work is paperwork and bureaucracy and all that. So understand that your degree doesn't define you. You define that degree. I know. See, I told you I was getting somewhere. I know. I was getting somewhere with this, okay? You define that degree. All right? So, like, for example, I have a medical degree. I'm very, very grateful for that. Okay? But medicine changed with Obamacare and all that. So that medical degree helped me launch an entertainment career, a teaching career, a journalism career, a media career. Let's say you are an engineer. You have an engineering degree and you are not necessarily, finding necessarily a job in engineering. Well, what if you go into consulting, or what if you go into teaching, or what if you, with that engineering background or science, you're a lot more than you think. There's so much more that you could do. So if you find that one avenue isn't working, you're able to hop the lily pads and go down other avenues. Okay, I'm working on my analogies. Leave me alone. I'm working on it. All right, congratulations, class of 2026. I'm proud of you. 1-877-Doc-Dolly. Don't go away.
Have you ever thought you'd like to buy and sell houses but didn't know how or where to get the money? My name is Ron LeGrand, and over the past 40 years, I've bought over 3,000 houses without using my money or credit and taught thousands to do the same. Today, even in a virtual environment, we buy nice houses in nice neighborhoods using no banks, realtors, contractors, or other costly entanglements, and build huge cash flow and wealth without the hassle of tenants, all without credit and little or no money. You don't need a license or experience, and I'll show you exactly how it's done. Text FREE to 99799 and I'll send you my free training. I promise you I'll change the way you think about real estate and open the door to a new lifestyle that doesn't involve risk or rehabs and can quickly replace your current income. Text FREE to 99799 and let me show you how to take your life back and build cash flow and wealth from your home. That's FREE to 99799. Again, FREE to 99799.
Hi, it's Mark Falter, host of the Financial Fitness Show. I strongly believe that no one should ever pay 1 penny more in taxes than they are legally obligated. Unfortunately, for most hardworking Americans, this just isn't the case. Why? Because most people spend more time planning next weekend's getaway than trying to ensure they're going to pay less in taxes. My financial fitness team has put together some materials that I know are going to help you. It's the Tax Savings Kit. Tax Savings Kit includes 3 things: free tax analysis, top 10 ways to pay less in taxes, and an investor's guide to taxes. Now, how do you get it? Simple. 866-764-2635. Again, 866-764-2635. I'm Mark Falter. This is Financial Fitness, making personal finance profitable.
we're back on the Dr. Dahlia Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer, and big thanks to y'all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. All right, so, when I would do a paper in school, you would have to cite your references. And I was a goody two-shoes. The last thing I wanted to ever do is cite something fake. Now, I understand that that is something that some of my friends would do. Like, when nobody's going to look it up, I'm just going to pull something out of my retroperitoneum, slap it on the page, and I'll stick a 1 next to it or a 2 or a 3. And then I'll make it sound really legit in the footnote. And I was like, you could do that? I just didn't want to. Plus, I figured that my professor or my teacher, because they had a PhD in biology or chemistry or whatever, that they would know if that paper existed or if that. I just would have never thought about that because, you cheat, you get kicked out of school. That's the way it used to be. And so when a few years back, there was a lawyer who was trying a case, I think this was in Massachusetts, and the references she was alluding to were fake. It wasn't necessarily, from what I understand her, it was the AI tool that they used that just pulled stuff out of the retroperitoneum, I guess, and gave these references. You're like, okay, come on. You're not double checking your work? And I'm thinking to myself, lawyers. Yeah, a doctor wouldn't do that. I mean, a doctor's going to double check everything. Scientists, you're dealing with medicine. Oh, there's no way you would be half-assed in medicine. I beg to differ. I am wrong. Apparently, AI is screwing up our medical references too. And we're being told that in PubMed, thousands of references were quote unquote fabricated. Not by somebody being mean and somebody being malicious, but because they're using AI. Here's the thing. Everybody tells me, even my kids are like, Mom, use AI for that. Use AI for that. I'm like, well, no, that's cheating. That's lazy. I want people to know that I put my blood, sweat, and tears in that project. And I know some of you are like, Dahlia, your show might be a little better if you used AI. So maybe listen to your kids. Listen, if my show is going to suck, I want that on me. All right. Yeah. Or if my show is going to be amazing, I want to take the credit. If I draw a picture, if I paint a picture, I want it to be me. I don't want anybody going, oh my God, you're an artist. Well, I'm only an artist because I have AI. Same thing with auto-tune. I've never used auto-tune for my voice when I sing. It shows, right? Yes, I know. Many of you have definitely expressed that I probably do need to have some sort of tech help out with my voice. But no, because if I'm going to sing a song and somebody goes, damn girl, you sounded good, I wanted it to be me. So, no, I'm not going to mess with all of that. But here we are where people are kind of criticizing RFK Jr. for, well, he's holding off publishing studies on vaccine effectiveness and safety, and they're holding off. Well, if you're running the risk of there being fake data and fake references, don't publish anything. I think everybody needs to halt and relook and reevaluate what the hell you're doing. Now, I mean, for me, if I ever wrote a paper with a student, I've done lots of papers with students, I double check every single reference. Again, because that was just me. The last thing I want to do is be accused, or the team be accused of cheating. So when my students would give me a reference, I would always check it and make sure that it was, okay, this is where they got that from. I mean, it's not that difficult to do. Well, let me tell you what the Lancet found. Okay, so here's a study. And this made headlines a day or two ago, where 1 in 277 PubMed indexed papers in 2026 had fabricated references. Now, I know some of you guys are like, well, all right, so the references could be bad. Just, maybe relook at PubMed. You don't understand. If science is being made and a way for a study, if a study is not concluded or found to be valid, it's out. But if somebody validates a study, that goes into science future. That's now science Bible. And what if we're talking about a cancer treatment? What if we're talking about, look at how there's all this discussion on ivermectin and fenbendazole, a veterinary rewormer. Mel Gibson said he had some friends with stage 4 cancer, got completely better because they were using ivermectin or fenbendazole. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. All right, well, somebody's looking at that going, okay, well, what are the anti-cancer properties of these two medications? Okay, if the study is using fabricated references, what do we do with that? You have to have, I mean, we're talking about people going, look, apparently the anti-cancer properties have been proven in animals, but not in humans. And so now they're starting to look at clinical trials, et cetera. But if you're pulling a paper saying, look, this is what we found, and then you have all these references saying, you see, it works in humans, double check the references, because if they're wrong, then that whole study can be thrown out. So we cannot have our medicine messed up. And if references are fake, because when somebody uses a reference, they'll say, for example, they'll say the apoptosis or the telomere, they might come up with something saying, we found this in humans, where we found this process to be susceptible to X, Y, and Z. And they reference where they got that from. And that means that experiment never existed. That's how serious this is. This is a cluster at a seventh. This is not good. So let me just tell you what they found. This was published in The Lancet. They said the analysis of articles indexed at PubMed found that about 1 in 277 papers published in the first 7 weeks of 2026 referenced a paper that never existed. And again, when you reference something, you're justifying a point. You're building an argument for your point, and then you're referring to the reference, which means then your point falls apart. They say this increase was a jump from 2025's rate of 1 in 458 to 2023's 1 in 2,828. So the researchers, led by Maxim Topaz of Columbia University's Data Science Institute, used AI to distinguish genuine fabrications from formatting discrepancies, such as informally abbreviating titles. So, like, let's say somebody is citing Lancet, and they say LCT. Okay, you wouldn't cite, you would just call it Lancet, or JAMA. JA. No, you would do JAMA. So that's how they could tell that some of this was amiss. They said the sharpest increase in hallucinated references, this is being reported by Retraction Watch, noted coincided with the rise of AI writing tools. The findings come as Nature reported last month that tens of thousands of publications of 2025 might have included invalid references generated by AI. So they're calling these hallucinated citations. Topaz and his colleagues were able to verify 97.1 million references, from which they identified 4,400 fabricated references that appeared in a total of 2,800 pages. They said, based on data from the Retraction Watch database and elsewhere, nearly all the articles found to have fake references, over 98%, had seen no publisher action at the time of the audit in February. Meaning, when there was a problem, why didn't the publisher rescind the paper? Okay, I mean, you have a contaminated piece of work, it's done, it's contaminated. So this is kind of concerning. A Taylor and Francis spokesperson told the site that the publisher is now investigating its technology, specialist staff, and processes to catch problematic citations. Articles with concerning references are returned to the author. If these account for more than a small proportion of citations and or substantially impact the overall integrity of the manuscript, the submission will be rejected. So Renee Hotch, head of publication ethics for PLOS, so PLOS, +1, they said that they are exploring options for system-wide reference integrity screening. Why hasn't this already been done? Now, they don't automatically classify fabricated references as misconduct. They said research misconduct has a specific definition that includes an element of intent. So it's true. If somebody if you are caught cheating, you're done. You never get to publish for that paper. But if this was, oops, my problem though with that is you can't do anything half-assed. You can't unintentionally hurt somebody and then continue to, we're really relying too much on AI. This is bothering me. And so I know people are questioning what's going on with RFK Jr. and the shingles vaccine and the COVID vaccine results. We know that Senator Johnson had talked about a week or two ago where there were 38,000 cases of deaths related to the COVID vaccine. And so, we need to study more, what those cases were, if it's a risk to the general population, is it really necessary for healthy 6-month-olds to get the COVID vaccine? But, if the studies are not getting published and I would say, one, make sure you do your due diligence and make sure the study is kosher. And two, make sure these references aren't fabricated. 1-877-Doc-Dolly, don't go away. Dr. Dahlia here. Are you tired, burned out, gaining weight, succumbing to the daily pressures of life? Well, how's your dopamine doing? How you feel right now, how you'll feel an hour from now, and how you'll feel next week is completely reliant on your dopamine. Our daily motivation and willingness to push through challenges depends on the intricate chemical process dopamine provides. Christian Kalikas and I created Deploying Dopamine, a book that tells you what dopamine is, when it dysfunctions, and how to successfully deploy it when needed. Find Deploying Dopamine on Amazon today. Check it out.
Increase fuel economy up to 7.9% with Hot Shot Secret Gasoline Extreme, the solution to maximize your engine's performance and fuel economy. Whether you're driving a sports car or a daily commuter, Gasoline Extreme is specially formulated with PEA to deep clean. Don't settle for an average driving experience. Upgrade to Hot Shot Secret Gasoline Extreme and go further on each tank. Order now on Amazon or HotShotSecret.com. Hot Shot Secret, powered by science.
We are back on the Dr. Dolly Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Doc-Dolly, 1-877-DOCDALI. So it was a quick trip, but look at that, how I got some background music. Sorry about that. Trump was in China, as we all saw. I thought it was a very, very beautiful opening ceremony that they had for him with these kids jumping and looking all happy. And I keep thinking of The Interview. I don't know if you guys ever saw that movie with Seth Rogen. It was pretty funny, and where they had a little kid holding a lollipop and waving. And so, did these kids really want to be there? They seemed happy. I mean, they were jumping up and down and all that. I miss the days when I could jump up and down and not pee on myself. So they were adorable kids, and, Trump seemed to like them. And it seemed to be a really, really beautiful trip, very quick. And so people are asking, what came of it? And so, Trump going to visit Xi Jinping, the Chinese president, was important as it pertained to trade, tariffs, Russia, Russia too, Iran. And when the president was being interviewed by Sean Hannity, he didn't seem to be as, shall we say, definitive and very disclosing of and I wouldn't expect that. If there was any deal made, I mean, he has to be very, very careful. He's still in China. For him to say, "Oh yeah, Xi Jinping bowed to everything I said," and I told him that wasn't going to happen. So he had to kind of keep it really cool. He was very restrained in that interview, and and he didn't really give a lot of details. So some people are thinking that nothing happened, but then again, to me, that's a sign that something did happen. And you're not going to want to mess things up by starting to talk and brag about it before the paperwork is done or before things are done. And so, but it did seem like it was a good meeting. It looked like they are able to, work together to some degree. Trump said that Xi feels very strongly on the Taiwan issue. He said, "I made no commitment either way." He said, "But I think the last thing we need right now is war that's 9,500 miles away." Trump indicated that Xi asked him whether he would defend Taiwan. And he said, "I don't want to talk about that." Now, remember, I mean, China is not our closest ally, all right? I mean, China is our biggest competitor. And so I didn't expect us to come out of this where China's going to back off. They're going to leave Taiwan alone. But it was very, very telling that, we know China's going to want to move in on Taiwan. My guess is they're going to wait till Trump's out of office. That's my guess. although I don't know if they want to wait 2.5 years. Trump told Xi when Xi asked him about defending Taiwan, he told me that would be a tough one. This was now on the release of prisoner Jimmy Lai. So Trump asked for his release, and Xi said that would be a tough one. He said he's going to strongly consider the pastor, and that's Pastor Ezra Jin. So it doesn't sound like we got a lot of promises with political prisoners. Trump needs something, and I'm sure Trump wasn't going to leave without something. He did invite Xi and his wife to visit the White House on September 24th. And it's either going to be the 24th or the 26th. The ballroom is not going to be ready in time by then, but at least they could come to the dinner, etc. And it'll give America a chance to, again, host the Chinese president, etc. But, what I think we got out of it is Xi Jinping did say that they were not going to arm Iran. All right. And that was important. I think Trump was able to kind of explain and, let Xi know that he is in a position of strength when it comes to this. And now that Iran is getting stuck, they don't have any more places to store because they can't, the Strait of Hormuz is blockaded. So now their storage facilities are getting full and they're going to have to then halt production. And once you halt production, it's really hard to turn that back on. So I think Xi knows that Trump isn't messing around and that Xi's oil capabilities and his resources are going to dwindle if the Iran issue doesn't end quickly. And I think Xi understands that the Revolutionary Guard is not helpful for anybody, but Xi is still in a position of power as it pertains to Iran. And they were doing okay, until America got involved. So I am sure there's some tensions with that. But, I know people saying, things didn't get done. He didn't get the political prisoners. Trump's goal was a few things. Okay, one was he wanted to, again, show America that he made, he made his one-on-one meeting with, he met with Putin, he met with Xi Jinping. I mean, he might even meet with Kim Jong-un, although Kim Jong-un is becoming less and less relevant these days. But he needed to show in this presidency, just like with the previous presidency, that he has no problem meeting, who he needs to meet and get also a better understanding of where they are. It's one thing to talk to somebody's people and to Zoom and telephone, but it's another thing to see their face and to see the way that Xi Jinping acted, President Xi, as it pertained to the political prisoners and as it pertained to Iran and as it pertained to Taiwan. Trump knows what he's dealing with. And so if there was any, let's just tell him this over the phone. Let's just tell him this. He knows where. And I think we learned a lot from that. And China thinks they are the biggest power and the best power in the whole wide world. So they don't look at Trump as a fly on the shoulder, as a shoe fly. They understand that Trump is the biggest thorn in their side, but they also understand that they could do better working with us. And Trump's job then secondarily was not only to feel Xi out and see what's going on, but also to show him that he's not don't believe the rumors that he's falling asleep. All right. He has work to do, and he has some things that he needs as gains also in terms of NVIDIA and being able to open up the marketplace and work more and work together with China. Working together with China makes China less of a threat, impedes China from messing with America. And so I know, if Xi Jinping really, really wants Taiwan, Trump probably brought up some options where you might actually benefit more from not going after Taiwan if you're working with us, which I think is very, very powerful. It was important to do, Trump talks a lot about, Putin. He talks a lot about China, these presidents and these leaders. And he's very, very careful to not, if you notice, he has to be very, very careful because he has to work with them diplomatically. I know people say he's unhinged and, he's making enemies and all that. He already knows who he has to work with and who he doesn't. Starmer might be out soon of the UK. And so when Starmer ticked him off, he's like, you know what? This guy is of no use to me. He's of no use to us. I'm going to say it like it is. But, he's been very tempered as it comes to Putin and Xi Jinping, not because they're buddies, but because he knows that they have to work together. And he's got an agenda, and that agenda is to stop the wars and to prevent new ones. So he's being very, very careful. The last thing he wants to do is call, them Rocket Man and things like that, like he did with Kim Jong-un. So it shows that also Trump is humbled by the power that President Xi has. That was very, very apparent. That, China is not insignificant by any means. And their leadership isn't either. And so, it was very, very telling. I think we learned a lot. And it also shows that China respects him. And President Xi, to go through all that effort, there was definitely respect, very, mutual respect. And that, yes, they can work together. And, I would like us to, work together more than be enemies. But the other thing, the final note that came from that is when he was asked by reporters about spies and, students coming in and things like that, he said, what they do, we do. And he implied that, we have spies, we have students over there. And he said, if we just ban American students, or if we just ban Chinese students, that's pretty caustic. It's not a declaration of war, but that's not going to help relations. So he's not going to be banning Chinese students coming to America. 1-877 Doc Dolly.
Hey guys, it's Clyde. We've had a lot of requests for Ground Zero merchandise, so we put together an online store with a big variety of high-quality items. I'm really excited to let you know about these things. We have a lot to offer you and your loved ones. In addition to our regular apparel, such as t-shirts, beanies, hoodies, and hats, we've expanded our product line with posters, flags, aprons, mugs, and a whole lot more. We also have Ground Zero collectibles, along with a limited edition of items like a Clyde Lewis canvas portrait, a Ground Zero embroidered jacket that will certainly make for great gifts and for interesting conversations with family and friends. And we now offer publications such as Ron Patton's book about mind control, MK Zine, and back copies of the official magazine of Ground Zero while it was in print. Paranoia, the Conspiracy Reader, also coming in 2023, are updated and revised books that I've written. There's a secure and easy-to-use shopping cart for your purchases. So shop today at our official store by going to groundzeromerch.com. Again, that's groundzeromerch.com.
Hey, America. How tired are you of mainstream corporate media's biased narratives and manipulated news? Their dishonesty and attempts to influence this generation have been exposed, put on display for anyone who's even half paying attention. But the New American Magazine has been an honest source of news and commentary for over 50 years. This is your opportunity to receive the stalwart of principled journalism at a deep discount. Picture a beautifully published magazine arriving at your doorstep twice a month, packed with insightful stories written with integrity. It's also available digitally on the New American's mobile app. Get up to speed with intelligent coverage from a freedom perspective. Right now, for a limited time, the New American is available to radio listeners at a 25% discount on a new subscription. Visit thenewamerican.com/radio25 and receive 25% off. Subscribe today at thenewamerican.com/radio25.
And we are back on the Dr. Dahlia Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dr. Dahlia, 1-877-DOCDALI. So, my kids grown up, and I'm not yet there as a grandma, but that is going to be coming hopefully soon. I don't know how quickly that would happen. I don't know if I'm ready to be a grandma. It's going to take a little while, but all I know is school, when my kids were in it, was pretty significant. And I wanted to make sure my kids not only were learning something, but were progressing. And I wanted to make sure that my kids were not only at the level of other kids, their age group, and they weren't falling behind, but that they could succeed and surpass in certain subjects and excel and, be able to, find their niche and their passion and their confidence in something. And I was very, very grateful that the schools they went to would identify if they were struggling or having any issues and help work with them. And if I felt there were issues, I would, work with them. My kids have tutored other kids. I used to tutor students, not only in undergrad as a student myself, but medical students and things like that. And so, sometimes you just need a little help, a little push. The problem though we're having is students are failing in epidemic proportions, and the numbers of students struggling is starting to really reflect on what's happening with our education system. So we've been doing cell phone bans, and some schools are, okay, well, we're doing cell phone bans and that's helping. And there's some studies now saying even with the cell phone bans, these kids are struggling and they are failing in reading, math. So one of the latest studies we have here is coming from the Educational Opportunity Project at Stanford. They say reading scores are down more than 80% of school districts. Math scores have fallen in 70% of school districts. In the last decade, student test scores have plummeted. Higher absenteeism, social media, smartphones, a rise in mental health issues. And the researchers, according to WESH.com, analyzed 3rd through 8th grade scores in about 2/3 of school districts nationwide. They looked at grade, district, and school, and when you look at as a whole, the numbers are abysmal. And so without going into all the detail here, I want to bring up this concept of cell phones, and let me see if I have that study here, because apparently the latest study showed that the ban has mixed results. They said here, let me give credit where credit's due. This is New York Times. They say that the bans achieved only some of the goals necessary to improve student scores, which means, now, as a scientist, it means the cell phones are part of the problem. It's not the whole problem. So if you're addressing the cell phone issue and it's not fixing the problem, that means it's only a partial contributor. So cell phones in the classroom, ridiculous to have students on their phones. I don't think the phones should be away from their person. I think, God forbid, there's a school shooter and like that. These kids have to be able to have access to their phones. But when I was in school, when your teacher said computers or your calculator, put your calculators away, you put them away. When your teacher said pencils down, pencils down. So I think one underlying issue is when a teacher tells somebody to do something, you do something. I was scared to death of my teachers. One, my teachers were spanking me, which, by the way, I never would advocate again. I don't think any teacher should be spanking their kid, but I grew up in a time where teachers would spank you. But also, they would call my parents. That was scary if they called my parents. So if a teacher said, put your calculator away, put your pencil down, don't cheat, stop saying curse words, Dolly, I was like, yes, ma'am. Ma'am, yes, ma'am. I mean, I wasn't gonna mess with them. So if a teacher's telling a kid, put your cell phone down, and they're not, okay, well, there's already an underlying issue that also suggests that there's a self-control issue and maybe a little oppositional defiant behavior there. If a teacher says you need to do your homework and you need to study, I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. But if you have kids where, the teacher's telling me to blow off, I'm not going to make the hand gesture, but whatever the teacher says, right. I'm gonna still be on my phone. Then if that teacher's telling them to study, or they're going, look, this is what'll help you, they might be also like, I'm blowing that off also. So the idea that your teachers should be blown off is concerning. Okay, then what are these kids eating? What is their mental fuel? Is it an avocado toast, egg white, fruit, balanced breakfast? Or are they eating sugar? And then by the time they're in school, they can't think and they're sleeping. Is it that some of these kids are vaping or exposed to drugs, or mom or dad's marijuana? What's going on there? Or is it that we're also seeing a change in the priorities of school districts and curricula, where rather than math and doing your times tables and reading the story, it's picking things that might be more political, and then the kids tell the parents, and the parents like, what the hell are they? How come they're having you read that? Come on, that's and then if the kids are picking up, the parents aren't respecting the teachers, well, then they're not going to respect. And so, let's say it's a book that has to do with a homosexual relationship, and the parents disapprove that the kids are reading about that. Well, then the kids aren't going to be studying that and take that. I had said long ago, our school system has to be revamped. I know it's a broken record, but what we need to do with our math, our reading, our science, our history, are 20 to 30 minute concrete sessions in the morning. None of this sitting for an hour. None of this, all day long. Get the basics and the core stuff done in the mornings. Lunch could be at school or at home, depending on if you're bullied or not. And then your afternoon is all your practical learning. From kindergarten on to junior year, to sophomore year high school, depending on your age, you will get exposed to farming, first aid, teaching, medicine, construction work, electrician, depending on your age, what you're exposed to. Everybody gets the same curriculum, same exposure. So by the time they're a sophomore in high school and they're finishing sophomore year, they kind of have an idea of what they might want to go into or get a trade degree in. Then high school stops at the end of sophomore year. And your junior and senior year, which is still a part of that taxpayer umbrella, so it doesn't cost us any more money, is now your free college. You get your associate's degree or your certificate, your trade certificate. Your junior and senior year will be what you now choose to do. And it doesn't mean you have to commit to that for life, but at least everybody leaving school at the age of 18 has a degree or a trade certificate so they can start working. And they have a pretty good idea of what fields are out there. Do you like farming? Do you know how to protect yourself with self-defense? Do you have another language? Do you will have exposed yourself to all these kids have been exposed to all the fields. Now, I understand schools right now are about, activism and teaching them about society and sociology and all that. But these kids are not graduating knowing what they want to do and what they want to, there's, I think, a better way. And if a parent wants a child in a more political track, there could be those choices. But I think kids need to know how to farm. Kids need to know how to garden. Kids need to know how to hunt, how to fish. And I'm not saying the third graders. I mean, this could be more the older kids, but kids need to know how to start a fire. They need to know life skills. They need to know how to financial literacy. And these are all the things that get taught in the afternoon. And boy, does school get fascinating then. And once a kid sees they're engaged and they're actually going to get a job out of this later, I mean, they might pay attention more. But right now, schools are failing. 1-877-Doc-Dolly, don't go away.
Looking for an easy read that can actually help secure someone's future? Pick up a copy of Mark Falter's book, Common Sense Income Strategies. For the past 30-plus years, Mark has helped thousands of hardworking Americans secure their financial future by using strategies that continue to create wealth, whether the market is up or down. Strategies that will make perfect sense once you take the time to read this powerful book. Common Sense Income Strategies brings to you what Mark has been teaching in person and talking about on the radio for decades. It's not rocket science, it's a pretty easy read. You've worked too long and too hard not to see the fruits of your labor. Common Sense Income Strategies is available now on Amazon or by calling 866-764-2635. That's 866-764-2635. Common Sense Income Strategies by Financial Fitness Show host Mark Falter. Secure your financial future today.